background is in advertising and media. I work with the ABC, a division of the ABC that works particularly on development issues and focuses on media development, but also on some of the campaigning issues around gender-based violence, maternal health, and more recently, disaster communication. Before I start, I would like to go back to what Stephen said in the morning. I think you were referring to HIV/AIDS, saying HIV/AIDS challenges us to be better human beings. And I think as an advertiser, that's a brilliant line, because if you just replace HIV/AIDS by anything, any product, any outcome, you could always say XYZ challenges us to be better human beings. And it works because that's what advertisers do really. They sell those ideas, they sell those outputs to people and seek behavior change in some ways. So people used to brush once in a day, now they brush twice in a day because that's what advertisers do. They sell those ideas to them to do those things differently. So it's quite a different approach from what we've been hearing through the day. There would be some commonalities and some basic understanding around gender. Probably you guys are much better experts into the gender area than I am, but I would be looking at more what the role of mass media can be in addressing gender issues. In terms of gender issues, I think I'd like to make just 2 or 3 points. The first one is that it's not a dichotomous issue, that it's not about men versus women. It's not about men against women, it's not about men against men, women against women. It's a relational issue. It's about the relationships between men and women and how the two interact with each other. I think it has come out today in different presentations repeatedly. The second key point I'd like to make, that it's a complex issue. I think Elizabeth demonstrated that quite well. Anna mentioned that as well. Different presentations have touched on the complexity of the whole issue of gender relations and how that needs to be addressed. And the third point is really in terms of how do you scale up? How do you scale up those community level activities to national level movement in some ways? How do you bring it to the public agenda, to public debate, so that people can discuss gender-based violence issues? And in order to do that, what I'm proposing here on behalf of ABC is really a long-term multi-level integrated strategy. This is drawing on the work of Ring the Bell campaign, which was implemented by Breakthrough. Breakthrough is an international organization. It is operating in India and US, but the campaign has been implemented in multiple countries. It identifies itself as a global human rights organization. And this campaign that I'm referring to, Ring the Bell, was launched in 2008 in India. Ring the Bell presents an example of an integrated long-term multi-level strategy to address violence against women. It's got 4 key components, as I put on the slide. So mass media, leadership and training, community mobilization, and research. And those 4 are the pillars of the program. The overall goal of the campaign is to engage communities to stand up and take action against violence and make homes safe for women and families everywhere. So Ring the Bell campaign has got international acclaim. It got adapted in China, Vietnam, Pakistan, and Canada. And they've also started a Breakthrough Institute, which is running training programs in Nepal and Bangladesh right now. ABC International Development, the organization that I come from, has been working in the area of media development for over 20 years on and off in Pacific and in Mekong. They've been doing projects with national broadcasters, building their capacity with media outfits, with NGOs as well. And the campaign that I'll be looking at here for the learnings aspect is Use Your Voice campaign, which was implemented in PNG. It was a violence against women campaign, which was implemented in 2011. Currently, ABC and Breakthrough have got a MOU in terms of implementing gender programs in the Pacific. So what were the learnings from PNG, from the campaign that we did? It was a very short-term campaign, just to set the context right. And while this model looks quite linear, it is not representing something linear. It's just looking at the key aspects that were being touched upon within the campaign. It uses the health approach model, the CAP model, which is the knowledge, attitude, practice model, in terms of measuring the impact of the campaign. And when we set out to do this, when we set out to research this, at the very onset of the project, we tried to define what the key objectives would be around the campaign and then try and measure them over time. So in terms of knowledge, we were looking at higher awareness on violence against women. In terms of attitudes, we were looking at breaking the link between masculinity and increasing discussion on violence against women. And in terms of practice, we were looking at reporting violence against women issues. And what we found, we did a national survey in 2011, and I would urge you to look at the report. It's available on the ABC International Development website, and it's got the full study around this campaign. What we found was that in terms of exposure, people who had seen the campaign had a high level of knowledge and high level of intent to report cases, but in terms of attitudes, the attitudes were still negative. So we were facing some contrary results, because what we were getting was, yes, people know about violence against women. Is that even an issue in terms of their awareness? This was raised in the morning, one of the discussions today. But the attitudes still remain negative. So when it came to statements like, violence against women often happens because the woman is asking for it by nagging or criticizing her partner, 63% males agreed and 55% females agreed. So there wasn't much difference between male and females as well. Both of them were agreeing to a large extent. Similarly, a statement around attitudes towards gender equality. So it is a woman's duty to submit to her partner. 75% men agreed and 66% female agreed. And these numbers are even higher in case of Vanuatu. We have recently finished a survey in Vanuatu, and the report would be released next month. So we went back to the study, we went back to the findings, what we were finding from the survey, what the gaps were, and then trying to revisit the model and looking at what is it about attitudes that we need to address. And we came up with two key things that need to be addressed within attitudes. This was based on extensive literature review, including some of the work of Richard Eves that Caritas presented this morning. And there were two core areas that needed to be addressed. There was the area of norms, in terms of violence being the solution to problems. And there was an issue around roles. And the roles issue needs to be addressed in a broader gender equality framework. What was coming out was that violence against women is not an issue in itself. It's an issue in a broader area of the complexity that we were referring to. So in terms of migration, in terms of HIV/AIDS, and all that comes together and manifests itself in terms of violence against women. And often the focus when addressing violence against women is around triggers. So it's around alcohol abuse, or it's around drug usage. It's not necessarily around gender inequality. But the underlying tension, the underlying reason for violence against women is actually the power relations. And the power relations have been existing for a long, long time. So it's difficult to shift those. But what we need to identify are the key areas that we can address, that we can change, that we can shift, so that we can make a change slowly and steadily and do a progression over time, rather than trying to address the whole issue of gender inequality in a whole. So if attitudes are to be altered and if attitudes are to be addressed, we need to focus around norms and around gender roles.